I was 22 when I matched with someone online. His name was Hunter, seemed like a decent guy. Nothing about him screamed danger, not at first. We went out 4 times in a little over a month. The first date was short coffee, less than an hour. Honestly, it felt more like a casual interview, just enough to confirm he wasn't a total weirdo. The second time, we met for drinks at a bar. We both had just enough alcohol to feel relaxed, and I remember thinking he was kind of funny. Date 3 was dinner. That's when the vibe started to shift. Something about him just felt off. Not in a screaming kind of way, but in a subtle, uneasy way I couldn't put my finger on. Still, the night ended with a quick kiss. It felt like closure to a decent night. That was the first and last time I let that happen. 2 weeks later, we met again, our 4th and final outing. It was supposed to be another harmless night of drinks, but I wasn't excited this time. I was observant, guarded. And suddenly, all those little quirks of his behavior stood out like red flags under a spotlight. He was drinking way too much, and his body language, the way he leaned in too close, touched too much, stared too hard. It was like he'd forgotten there were people around us at the bar. Like we were the only two in the world, or he wished we were. I'm not big on public affection, especially not when strangers are close enough to overhear every breath. I gently brushed off his repeated attempts to kiss me and eventually told him I was tired, a not so subtle cue that it was time to end the night. He paid the bill and we both headed outside. As we were walking to our cars, he suddenly stopped and asked, bluntly, if I wanted to go back to his place. I lied and said I had work early the next morning. He pushed again, joked about how he could drag me to work himself, drunk or not. The entitlement in his tone threw me, and the fact that he intended to drive himself home like that made it worse. I knew at that moment, this was it. No more dates. I got into my car, parked across the street, and started the slow drive home. I wasn't drunk, but I'd had enough to take things extra cautiously. I kept checking my mirrors not just for cops, but something else. I was uneasy, and that's when I noticed a familiar car trailing me, turn after turn, still there. At a red light, I recognized the shape of his headlights. I messaged him, "Are you following me?" He answered quickly, "Just making sure you get home safe." I called him. He didn't pick up. That was when the fear really set in. I pulled over and texted again, "Stop. I'm fine. Go home." His car slowed behind me, paused. Then it turned around and vanished down the street. I exhaled, trying to calm the pounding in my chest. I made it home, crawled into bed. I tried to shake it off. A little later, my phone buzzed. "Hope I didn't freak you out. Sorry I got drunk. Next time, let's do something chill, like dinner at my place." I didn't answer. The next morning, another message. "Is the vibe dead?" Then, 2 hours later, just a question mark. I finally replied, "Hey, I've really enjoyed getting to know you, but I don't think we're a good match. I need to focus on myself right now. Hope you understand." He didn't. The response was immediate and angry. "No, I don't understand. You let me waste my time and money on 4 dates? You owe me half of what I spent on you." His texts kept coming, some petty, some aggressive, and some disturbingly personal. I blocked him. I thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. A flood of caller ID phone calls followed. Dozens, then hundreds, day and night. I ignored everyone. Eventually, the calls stopped. I started to feel like maybe he got the message. Until the next day, I came home from work. My parents weren't home. I noticed something on the front step, a bouquet of flowers, and a card. The note was from Hunter, an apology, asking for another chance. But here's the thing. I had never given him my address. Somehow, he had found out where I lived. It chilled me to the bone. What he probably thought was romantic felt more like a warning. I sent one final message from a different number. "Do not contact me again. Do not come to my house. If you do, I will file a restraining order." I blocked that number too. I hoped that was the end, but I was wrong. A few nights later, I was home alone. My bedroom was in the loft, the highest point in the house. The place was completely quiet. Too quiet. Something woke me. A noise. Distant. Muffled. I couldn't quite place it at first. Then, clear as day, the sound of a door creaking open upstairs. No one was supposed to be home. My heart froze. I slipped off the bed and crawled to the floor, squeezing myself under it. I grabbed my phone and texted everyone in my family. "Is anyone home?" No reply. More sounds. Faint footsteps. Then my bedroom door opened, and someone walked in. I held my breath as the person approached. Carpeted floors muffled the steps, but I could feel them. Then the drawers next to my bed opened, one by one. Then a voice low and angry muttered under his breath. It sounded like Hunter. My stomach dropped. I didn't dare move. My hand was over my mouth to quiet my breathing. Then the bed shifted. He sat down. I could see his shoes from under the bed inches away. He sat there for minutes, silent, breathing, thinking. Then he stood up, muttered something again, slammed the drawers shut. I walked out, down the stairs. The front door opened, then closed. I whispered into the phone and finally called 911. 10 minutes later, an officer arrived. I met him at the door, trying not to cry. He called for backup and a second officer helped sweep the house. All the windows were unlocked. One of them, the dining room, was large enough to crawl through, and hidden behind a bush. I gave my full statement. They took it seriously. Give me a report number. But without proof, there wasn't much they could do. We went to the station the next day, handed over screenshots. The text where he admitted to following me. Everything. I was able to get a restraining order. They warned me never to confront him, never reach out, and thankfully he never came back. But until I moved out, I never felt safe. Every creak, every shadow, every window glance made my skin crawl. Even now, sometimes I wonder, does he know where I live today? I was in 6th grade when this all began. It was the week of Halloween, and I'd been staying after school to help set up a haunted house for our fall carnival. The late afternoons were a nice escape, just a few of us hanging out, laughing, working on decorations, and getting paid in pizza. One of the kids who always stayed late was a boy I'll call Chris. He wasn't a close friend, but he was easy to be around, funny, laid back, and never gave me any reason to feel uncomfortable. Until he did. A couple of weeks after Halloween, I was walking to class when a group of girls in my grade ran up to me, grinning ear to ear. They were giggling like they had just discovered a major secret. One of them leaned in and whispered, "You have a secret admirer. He's going to message you tonight." I'll admit, I felt a flutter of curiosity, maybe even a little excitement. I was young and the thought of someone liking me felt new. That night, just as I was about to fall asleep, my phone buzzed with a notification from Messenger, the app one mostly used to stay in touch with my parents when they weren't home. The message was from Chris. I had completely forgotten that I added him on Facebook around Halloween. His message read, "Maya, I really need to talk to you." I blinked at the screen, unsure what he meant. I replied, "What's up? Is everything okay?" I wish I had never hit send. His typing bubbles appeared, then stayed and stayed for over 2 minutes. Just those little dots pulsing, dragging out an invisible tension in the dark room. When his message finally appeared, it was a wall of text, a full confession. He told me he'd been obsessed with me since Halloween, that he couldn't stop thinking about me, that every time he played soccer at recess, it was to impress me. He was frustrated I hadn't noticed him, and said he couldn't take being ignored any longer. "I just want to know, will you be my girlfriend?" I stared at the message, chilled. We barely knew each other and hadn't even really spoken since the carnival. It was so sudden, so intense. Trying to be kind, I gently told him I didn't feel that way and just wanted to stay friends. But he wouldn't let it go. Why? What did I do wrong? "Please, just tell me." Every time I answered, he came back with another question. Eventually, he went silent. The next morning was worse. Some of his friends came up to me in the hall, smirking. "Chris says he's going to kiss you today. He's serious. He'll corner you if he has to." I felt sick. That didn't sound like a joke. It sounded like a threat. I told my teacher. She told me to stay inside during recess and lunch, and to come back to class immediately if I saw him nearby. That wasn't enough for me. I went to the principal. He promised they'd handle it. I remember feeling some relief, like maybe this nightmare was about to end. But it didn't. Everyone in school knew where I lived, especially Chris. My house sat directly across the street from the school, and it made what happened next even more disturbing. One day after walking home, I barely set my backpack down when there was a knock at the front door. I peeked through the curtain just in time to see someone duck behind a parked car across the street. My mom opened the door. No one was there. But there was a note. It was addressed to me. "There's a surprise for you under the Cadillac." At the time, that was my brother's car. My mom went to check. Nothing was there. But the next day, the car wouldn't start. No one could figure out why. Whatever Chris had done, it caused enough damage that my brother ended up selling it. That was just the beginning. Chris's friends kept harassing me, telling me to give him a chance. telling me how sweet he was. There was even a day I caught him crouching behind a bush, holding his phone. I wouldn't have noticed if I hadn't heard the faint sound of the camera shutter. He was taking pictures of me walking home. From that point on, every morning, I'd wake up to a message from him. Can't wait to see you today. I know you'll look beautiful. It wasn't romantic. It was suffocating, terrifying, and he knew exactly where I lived. Then I got called into the counselor's office. Someone's doing something. But what I heard left me speechless. She looked me in the eye and said, "Sweetheart, boys do silly things when they're in love. You should feel flattered." I just sat there, nodding, confused, trying to believe she was right. But looking back now, it makes my blood boil. I went home and told my mom everything. She lost it. Later that week, I was called into the principal's office again, this time with my mom by my side. I'll never forget the way she stared them both down and said, "What are you waiting for? For something to happen to my daughter before you take this seriously?" They had no answers, just silence. She made it clear that the counselor was never to speak to me again unless she was present. Still, I don't think Chris was ever punished. Not really. He got away with everything. And it wasn't over. One weekend, my parents went out shopping and I stayed home alone. I just finished watching a video on my iPad and was about to turn in for the night when I heard something tap against my window. That alone would have been strange, except I sleep on the second floor. Then it happened again. And again. A soft, rhythmic tapping. I gathered the nerve to pull the curtain aside. My breath caught in my throat. Chris was standing in my yard, looking up, a handful of pebbles in one hand, mid-throw. When he saw me at the window, he froze. I didn't stick around. I checked every door and window, locking them tight. By the time I returned to my room, he had sent 4 messages. "Why'd you walk away?" "I just wanted to talk." "I'm sorry. All I wanted was a kiss." "You're not who I thought you were." "Goodbye." I blocked him. That was the last time he ever showed up. Though I had to see him every day until graduation, he never approached me again. The final thing I ever heard about Chris was years later. He'd been arrested. I don't know what to do, but I can imagine. And the part that still haunts me to this day is that a trusted adult once told me his obsession was a compliment, that I should be grateful for the attention, that this was just part of being a girl. I pray she never works with children again, and I hope I never see Chris's face for as long as I live. I'm sharing this anonymously not because I'm ashamed, but because I'm still haunted by what happened. I have PTSD from this, and frankly, I'm lucky to be alive. I've always been introverted. Growing up, I struggled socially, never with academics, just people. My teachers flagged it early on. I was the quiet kid, always sitting alone, withdrawn, awkward. While others joined friend groups and lived out their teenage dramas, I kept to myself. It wasn't until adulthood that I found my footing. By 23, I had a good job in my field, enough to buy a decent townhouse in my hometown. 2 stories, spacious, exactly the kind of place that impressed dates on first visits. And that's how I met her. Her name wasn't Emily, but that's what I'll call her. We matched on Tinder. She was attractive, charming, and to my surprise, actually wanted to go on a date. We grabbed dinner at a nearby restaurant. I spent most of it silently overanalyzing myself, thinking I blew it. But when I got home, she texted, "I had a great time." And just like that, things took off. One date became 4. Then we were official. At first, it felt like constant messages, late night calls, butterflies. But the novelty faded fast. Her messages grew relentless. If I didn't answer immediately, she'd send or start calling. One night, while we were curled up on my couch, she demanded we share our live locations. I hesitated but gave in. I didn't have anything to hide. That was a mistake. Once she had access to my location, the obsession spiraled. She'd interrogate me if I was at a friend's place or offline too long. The final straw came one night when I was hanging out in my buddy Phil's basement with a couple of friends. Emily showed up. She actually showed up at his house. Phil's mom brought her downstairs, and without hesitation, she unleashed on me loud enough for the whole house to hear about how I was ignoring her texts, how we were supposed to go to a winery the next day, and how I didn't care. I asked her to cool off and told her we could talk later, but she insisted I leave with her. We argued outside, under the streetlight. She wanted to stay the night at my place, and I told her no. We'd driven separately, so I headed home alone. Once I got inside, I sent her a long text. "I need a break. I need space." I didn't have it in me to say it face to face. And honestly, I was scared of how she'd react. Almost immediately, my phone exploded with calls, texts, and notifications until the doorbell started ringing. Over and over, then came the pounding. My neighbor stepped out and confronted her. I listened through the door as she screamed at him about how I was a piece of garbage. Finally, she left. I turned off location sharing that night. She noticed almost immediately. More texts. Angry ones. She was clearly monitoring it 24/7. I told her I was blocking her, that she was scaring me. She went quiet. Finally, or so I thought. Exactly 1 week later, I was back at Phil's. Just the usual weekend hangout. I got home a little before midnight, hungry and too awake for bed. I threw something in the microwave and sat down to find a movie to stream something scary, ironically. Then I heard it. It came from the dining room. The layout of my place is a circle kitchen, dining room, living room, and a small den all split by walls, except the den connects to the dining room with a door. I always kept that door shut. I muted the TV. Silence. Then I heard the unmistakable sound of that door creaking open again. I stood up, heart thudding in my chest. "Who's there?" I called out. Nothing. I slowly walked into the dining room and froze. The den door was wide open. No one was supposed to be in my house. I ran to the kitchen and grabbed the biggest knife I had. My hands were shaking as I dialed 911, my first time ever calling. I spoke loud on purpose, hoping whoever was in the house would hear me say the words. "I think my ex has broken in. I'm alone. Please send someone." The dispatcher told me to wait outside if I could, so I stepped out the front door, heart pounding. To my surprise, the cops showed up quickly. One officer followed me inside, and we did a full sweep. Every closet, every crawl space, even the attic. No one. The officer didn't treat me like I was crazy, though. That told me everything. I ate my cold food upstairs, locked my bedroom door, and tried to wind down. I texted my friends, recapped everything. I even thought about messaging Emily but stopped myself. Eventually, I fell asleep after taking something to help me relax. But it didn't last. I woke to the soft buzz of my phone. A bunch of texts from an unknown number. It was Emily. She was rambling, apologies, desperation, begging me to meet her tomorrow. Then message after message. "Are you awake? Wake up. Please wake up." She said, "Wake up," 8 times. I was typing out a reply when I heard it. A scream. Inside my room. From the closet. My blood ran cold. She screamed, "No," as the closet door burst open, and Emily came lunging out. With a knife. I didn't think so. I just bolted from the bed, throwing the bedroom door open. I shoved it shut behind me and held it closed with my entire body. She was pushing against it, stabbing at the door. The blade pierced through the wood, nearly stabbing me. I screamed out the first thing that came to mind. "Baby, I love you. Please stop." I don't know why I said that. Panic, survival instinct, maybe both. It worked. She stopped. Everything went quiet. I kept talking. "I'm sorry. I've been going through something. I didn't know how to tell you I still love you." She sniffled. Her voice cracked. "That's all I wanted to hear. Why couldn't you just be honest?" She asked me to open the door. I told her I was scared, that I needed her to drop the knife first. She hesitated, then agreed. I heard the clatter of the blade hitting the floor. That was my chance. I yanked the door open and tackled her. She fought, screamed. I held her down with one arm while screaming into my phone, still on the line with 911. Then came the thunderous crash of the front door being kicked in. Cops flooded the hallway. A lot of them. They put her in cuffs. She was hysterical. I sat on the floor, completely numb. That was the worst night of my life. The legal process afterward was long and traumatic. Emily ended up in prison. Serious charges. But none of it brought me peace. I loved her once, and she tried to kill me. What still haunts me most is how long I ignored the red flags. How badly I wanted to be accepted that I let obsession slide as love. This story will never leave me, and even though I've chosen to stay anonymous, it feels good to finally tell it.